was that pretty kaka. But they've had a couple of good seasons on the Joe McCluskey or probably that.
Yes, they did. That was back in the 2000s, 99, 2000s.
Hawke's Bay in that final.
Yes, in that final. Yes. I was at, great game, that game. I was actually at Hawke's Bay at, what's that park down in Hawke's Bay?
Park?
At McLean. Yes, McLean Park.
McLean Park, yeah.
Yeah. That was
I had
a great
couple of old schoolmates playing in that, I think.
Oh, true.
Johnny Bradbrook was the halfback, and
Yep.
Orcades Crawford was the head boy at Chelsea when I was here. He was playing prop, so...
Yep.
Yeah. So East Coast, of course, renowned for being the cellar dwellers. I remember being when I started being at boarding school. And back in those days, you had the old Sunday or the Saturday sports wrap-up on the news, and all the different rugby provinces scores would come up, and all the Auckland, all the Auckland boys would go up, and poor old East Coast, getting beaten 72-0, and you sort of put your head down and keep quiet.
Yeah. No, but those were great days, actually, back in those days. I'll tell you what, I remember that I think they were against Nelson Bays in the semi-final, just before the final, and there must have been, I'm not sure how many people, there must have been there were thousands, there were definitely thousands that went and invaded the pitch up there at Whakarua Park, but boy, that was just a great day, and seeing just all the fun. We had the corporate boxes where you were able to jump in the back of your ute and stick yourself right next to the sideline. Those were awesome days. Of course, not so long ago, I think, was that 2012 or 13 or something like that? East Coast. Yes, East Coast actually ended up winning. Of course, thanks to the leadership of Rua Tapoki, who came back and played for my club team, actually, Pirates, along with the coach there, Ngāramu Simpkins. So they were able to award reward the East Coast for their long suffrage of going without a cup for such a long time. So it was just East Coast has been, has had some good years, that's for sure, but there's been some terrible ones too, eh?
Oh, there's been some very, very lean years, and that's putting it nicely. But, that's part of the fabric of East Coast society,
yes,
it's rugby,
it is.
Farming,
all
that whanaungatanga sort of stuff, and like I said, rugby to the coasties is a part and parcel of their day-to-day life. I remember going up there years ago, and I had a Melbourne Storm jersey on in the pub, and what are you wearing that? This is rugby country. I remember saying to them, well, maybe you should try and play rugby league because you suck at rugby. And, I got escorted out of there pretty quickly.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. The first time, I was only a kid. I wasn't even playing rugby at the time, but the first time I went to see an East Coast match was my uncle. An uncle of mine was playing for Taranaki, and he had come over and they were playing just, back in those days. It would have been the 80s. Would have been in the 80s. They just happened to, go on a bit of a tour, as a lot of the teams back in those days used to do. And that was my, I think that might have been my first ever time in Ruatoria, to be quite frank. So,
do you think it was 1981, around that time, 1981?
Yeah.
Because I remember I was at primary school when Taranaki came in.
Right.
At the time, they might even have been the Ranfurly Shield holders.
Yes, could have been.
And they had a couple of All Blacks, Dave Loveridge.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll move on. I guess we'll move on to my favourite part of the show, the part where we get to release the angst that we've built up over the week, the part of the part of the show that we all tend to live for. Well, we don't maybe not live for, but we certainly enjoy it. Well, I certainly enjoy it. So, gentlemen, it is time for us to put the boot in. Now, they've got guys like Don Brash, Don Brash, and I think my put the boot in, if it wasn't last week, it was the week before. My put the boot in was not to Don Brash, but to the people that were yelling and screaming at him when he went to Auckland, or even to the people down there in Palmerston North, because he was supposed to speak in Palmerston North, but he got that cancelled, so he went up to Auckland. And the thing is, what happened is it became an even bigger deal that he went up to Auckland than if he had been just in a quiet little old room in Palmerston North. He would probably get very little, if any, publicity. The publicity he got was big when he got to Auckland, and then he got these, what I called idiots, screaming at him, basically proving his point, which was about free speech. There's also these people that we were going on about, that Stefan Molyneux and that Lauren Southerner when they came to New Zealand. You know, if they had just, if the mayor had just let them go to their first venue, then there wouldn't have been as big a deal, I think, as what it turned out to be. But they cut off that venue, then they tried to go to another venue, cut that off, and then there was another venue, and it became more of a bigger deal than what it should have been. So that's who my put the boot in is going out to those idiots that are just, I don't know, trying to stop free speech. So there we go, that's my put the boot in.
And I'll start my put the boot in with Parliament news coming through last night, where one MP, Labour MP, Willow Jean Prime, beautifully speaks Te Reo Māori, but obviously when she did her whole speech yesterday, as part of her maiden speech at Parliament, emails, everything started going crazy. She was criticised from a member of the public and from some in-house as well, even attacked on her Facebook page. She should never have spoken in Te Reo Māori. It is not her right to speak when their maiden speech is in Te Reo Māori. I think you need to take a look at yourself, people, because Te Reo Māori is recognised as one of the national languages. We use sign language when the Prime Minister or any other hierarchy speak these days. Obviously, we speak in English, but for public and people in House of Parliament to send emails and, of course, attack her on her social media page about speaking Te Reo Māori during her maiden speech, I'm going to put the boot into all of you that attacked this lovely lady. She went into Parliament. She was happy, had a baby. She's done the whole Prime Minister thing, and she gets a chance to speak in her native language, her first language she was learnt as well, in the public out there, eh? You're talking about freedom of speech, mate, and this young lady couldn't even speak in Te Reo Māori. Mate, you better check yourself out. So I'm going to put the boot into all of those people who criticise this young lady. There you go, put the boot into all those critics out there.
Put the boot in!
Well, it seems to me, boys, that the race card is in vogue today, so I'm going to go with it too. I'm going to change tack there. I'm going to put my boot into the Code of Conduct Committee set up to interview Gisborne District Councillor Meredith Akuhata Brown in regards to her claims, her allegations of a racist conversation held between two other councillors probably about 3 or so weeks ago now. And one of the committee members expressed that the most important outcome of this meeting was for the public to maintain its trust in the council. Well, as far as I'm concerned, the whole thing's been swept under the mat. And I think it's fair to say that in the eyes of many, the trust of the Gisborne District Council is now nada, zilch, zippo, kore. So that's my put the boot in.
Put the boot in! I'm going to start off with you there, first of all, Rino, because I tell you what, bro, we're pretty much going on the same line here, aren't we? You know, freedom of speech. I was talking about, and this is the exact thing that I was kind of complaining about. You get a Don Brash or a Stefan Molyneux or a Lauren Southerner, and you try and stop them from talking, and then this is what happens. That's what they'll try and do as well to this lovely lady in Parliament trying to speak her own language, you know. So it's just ridiculous. I think people trying to cut off other people's freedom of speech, and it just is. It's kind of like tit for tat in a way, I guess you have to say. And that's just gets my goat up too there, Reno. Really does, bro.
Oh, it does, like you were talking about Don Brash, who, by the way, is nominated for New Zealand of the Year, I see.
Thanks
But
you.
hey,
Thanks to you idiot.
Was talk controversy, eh?
Yeah.
But I put that aside, but it's freedom of speech, and, the Te Reo Māori was recognised now, and it's used everywhere. What, are we only allowed to do it in sporting events at the start of an international game?
Yes.
Through haka? Case News has difference of opinion on that just recently as well. It's just, I don't know, society, really, the country's got nuts, mate.
Yeah.
People in general, and I don't want to get too racist on this, but some of these people who need to up their game now and realise that it is a recognised language and it's been used a lot more.
It's an official language.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
It's an official language of... Yeah.
It's been used a lot more in a lot of areas, not only within Parliament, but you go to most places, major council meetings, when they open up with a prayer. It'll be in Te Reo Māori or even English, so, I don't know.
And from what I understand, because I'm not really au fait with it, from what I understand, there's only two official languages in New Zealand, Māori and sign language. English isn't even, from what I understand, English isn't even an official language of this country. How ridiculous is that? Hey, that's just ridiculous. Anyway, on your one there, JT, yeah, man. Okay, I understand.
But tread carefully.
I am. I'm trying to. I understand where Meredith is coming from. And more than anything, I applaud her for what she did. However, and this is the thing, it was a private conversation between one person and another, and really probably shouldn't have been outed. I mean, in my opinion, if you're in a private conversation, then it should be exactly that, private. However, having said that, I do applaud what she has done. I disagree on it, though. I do disagree on it, just specifically for that point. But that's just what I think there, JT.
Oh, mate, I couldn't agree. I couldn't disagree more. If I tried, Keith, the fact that these two numbskulls have had this conversation during a council lunch, I presume.
Yeah.
Meredith was there. It was during not so much. Maybe it might have been not council business, but during they were there for council purposes.
Yeah.
And more to the point, if these guys harbour these sort of thoughts and think that it's okay to say that sort of stuff, and these are people making decisions for home, and so straight away there's a bit of a conflict of interest.
Yes.
In my opinion, I think these guys, if that's the way they think, that's their thought process,
yes,
and they think it's okay to say this sort of garbage, then no, I think they should be outed and outed. Get out of here.
Outed and outed. Obviously, that's not going to happen.
Well, I know there's a protest going to be held outside the Gisborne District Council chambers next month. Unfortunately, it's a week after
okay.
I would already come back here, so I might go there early and protest on my own, just for. And I know you'll come with me, Keithley. United we stand, brother. United we stand.
We'll have a private conversation. True that. Anyway, you have a great day there, Rino, and JT. Awesome. It's always a pleasure having you on board. And well, I tell you what, we know that you're going to be coming back to Gisborne. What is it, next month? Is it?
Yeah, so another 20th of September, I think it is. We're flying over there for a 21st with our nieces. So it'd be good to be able to catch up, and I'll
definitely.
Like I said to you in the chat thing, I'll bring a couple of coffees and some donuts so we can chew the fat in person.
Awesome. Anyway, you have a great day there, JT. Great to catch up with you.
Thanks, boys. Go to the All Blacks.
See you later, eh?